The observation deck of the Galactic Consortium's deep space research vessel hummed with a quiet tension. Senior researcher Zara Vox adjusted her neural interface, filtering through the endless stream of electromagnetic chatter emanating from the small blue-green planet designated as Sector 7b. Classification: Emerging Civilization. Her preliminary report would be straightforward. Humans, a species trapped in perpetual conflict, fragmented by arbitrary geographical boundaries, technological disparities, and complex social hierarchies. Their communication networks seemed chaotic, their scientific progress maddeningly inconsistent. One moment, they would demonstrate remarkable ingenuity. The next, they would engage in what appeared to be spectacularly self-destructive behavior. Preliminary analysis complete, Zara muttered into her quantum recording device. Her tentacles, a delicate network of neural appendages, flickered with mild irritation. Species shows minimal potential for galactic integration. Recommendation: continued passive observation. But something was wrong. The data refused to align with her initial assessment. Hidden beneath the surface chaos, intricate patterns began to emerge. A viral video about a small domesticated feline performing an improbable physical maneuver caught her attention. The clip, labeled "Quantum Cat Fail," showed a four-legged creature executing a series of movements that defied basic biomechanical understanding. More puzzling was the human response. Instead of dismissing the improbable event, thousands, no, millions of humans began analyzing the video. They created complex mathematical models, developed physical simulations, and engaged in heated debates about the precise mechanics of the cat's movement. What should have been a mundane piece of digital ephemera became a global research project. Zara zoomed in on the communication threads. Each comment represented a unique cognitive approach. Some were rigorous and scientific, others wildly creative, many deliberately humorous. The collective intelligence display was unlike anything in the Galactic Consortium's extensive records. Her research assistant, a junior analyst named Krell, noticed her prolonged focus. Anomaly detected, he inquired, his communication tendrils quivering with professional curiosity. Possibly, Zara responded, her professional detachment slipping. Run a comprehensive pattern analysis on human internet communications from the past 72 standard cycles. The results were unprecedented. Humans communicated in layers of meaning so complex that traditional xenolinguistic algorithms failed to decode them. A single image could contain multiple levels of ironic commentary. A brief text message could simultaneously convey humor, criticism, emotional vulnerability, and complex social commentary. Most concerning was their ability to rapidly collaborate and innovate. Within hours of the cat video's release, multiple scientific papers emerged exploring the biomechanical principles demonstrated. Engineers began designing robotic systems inspired by the feline's improbable movement. Comedians produced satirical interpretations that somehow contributed additional layers of scientific insight. "This is impossible," Krell muttered, his translation matrix struggling to process the data. Zara's research had tracked hundreds of emerging civilizations. She knew the standard progression: technological development, internal conflicts, potential galactic integration, or self-destruction. Humans seemed to be simultaneously pursuing all potential paths with a frenetic energy that defied categorization. Her initial report would need significant revision. What had seemed like a straightforward classification was revealing itself to be something far more complex. Humans were not just another emerging species. They were something else entirely, a cognitive wildfire that refused to be contained by conventional understanding. "Prepare a comprehensive reanalysis," she instructed Krell, "and retrieve my emergency communication protocols. The Galactic Consortium needs to be informed immediately." Dr. Michael Rodriguez stood in the middle of what the Galactic Consortium would charitably call a research facility. Though it more closely resembled an organized disaster. Salvaged computer parts hung from magnetic boards, Half-disassembled quantum processors balanced precariously on stacks of energy drink cans, and whiteboard equations covered every available surface in a web of mathematical madness. His team had been given an impossible challenge: integrate recovered alien communication technology with existing human infrastructure. The standard institutional approach would have been methodical, linear, bureaucratic. Instead, Rodriguez had turned the project into something resembling a high-stakes creative marathon. "We're not solving a problem," he told his team during their daily strategy session. "We're reimagining possibility." Unbeknownst to Rodriguez, senior researcher Zara Vox was watching. Her observation systems had been recalibrated after the cat video incident, and this human research team had become her primary point of fascination. The breakthrough came during what humans called a hackathon, a collaborative coding event that defied every known scientific protocol. Rodriguez's team included a retired military communications specialist, a teenage programming prodigy, a quantum physics graduate student, and a graphic designer with an inexplicable understanding of complex systems. They worked in a manner that would have driven any traditional research team to madness. Conversations jumped between technical jargon, pop culture references, and seemingly unrelated tangents. Music blared from multiple speakers. Someone was simultaneously coding, eating a burrito, and explaining a breakthrough to a teammate. The alien observation system struggled to categorize their methodology. This wasn't research. It was a form of controlled chaos. By day 3, they had accomplished what the Galactic Consortium's top research teams would have considered impossible. The recovered alien communication module, designed for a highly structured, logic-driven species, had been completely reimagined. Rodriguez's team didn't just understand the technology, they had transformed it. "Look," said Elena Martinez, the graduate student, pointing to a holographic display. "We've essentially turned their communication protocol into a creative language generator. It's not just transmitting information anymore. It's generating new forms of communication." Zara Vox's research systems nearly overloaded. The humans weren't just understanding alien technology, they were evolving it. The communication module they developed could do more than transmit information. It could adapt, learn, and create. Where alien technology followed strict parameters, this new system embraced uncertainty as a feature, not a bug. Rodriguez explained it during an impromptu presentation, his explanation a mixture of technical brilliance and creative metaphor. "We're not reverse engineering," he said. "We're having a conversation with technology. Every piece of code is a dialogue, not a command." His team had transformed a piece of alien technology into something entirely new. It wasn't just a communication device. It was a platform for potential, a bridge between understanding and imagination. The Galactic Consortium's preliminary analysis was stark and terrifying. Humans had taken a piece of technology designed for a civilization millions of years more advanced and fundamentally reimagined its purpose in less than a week. Zara Vox updated her initial report. Her previous assessment of humans as a primitive species was now laughably inadequate. These were not just technological adapters. They were cognitive transformers, able to look at the most complex systems and see not just what they were, but what they could become. Recommendation updated. She transmitted to her superiors. Extreme caution advised. Humans are not just a potential galactic species. They are a fundamental threat to our understanding of technological and cognitive evolution. In a small research facility, surrounded by energy drink cans and salvage technology, Dr. Michael Rodriguez and his team continued their work, completely unaware of the galactic alarm they had just triggered. The Galactic Consortium's Psychological Warfare Division had perfected their approach over millennia. They possessed algorithms of manipulation so precise that they could destabilize entire civilizations with microscopic interventions. Their success rate stood at 99.8% across known galactic species, a record of unparalleled effectiveness. Then they encountered humanity. Lead strategist Vorin Katax reviewed the initial infiltration reports with mounting confusion. The psychological warfare team had deployed their most sophisticated cognitive disruption protocols against human communication networks. These protocols had systematically dismantled civilizations far more advanced than Earth's. The first wave of interventions seemed promising. Carefully crafted disinformation campaigns were introduced into human social media platforms. Algorithmically designed messages targeted social divisions, amplified existing tensions, and exploited psychological vulnerabilities that had worked flawlessly on hundreds of previous species. Within hours, something unprecedented happened. Instead of fragmenting, human social networks transformed the disinformation into something entirely unexpected. Memes began to circulate that not only neutralized the psychological attack, but turned it into a form of collective social commentary. Where the consortium expected division, humans generated unity. Where they anticipated fear, humans produced humor. A simple disinformation thread about governmental conspiracy became a crowdsourced investigation. Attempts to create racial tensions resulted in unprecedented displays of cross-cultural solidarity. Economic manipulation attempts were met with complex collaborative financial strategies that the alien analysts couldn't comprehend. "This is impossible," Kitax muttered, reviewing the data streams. The human response defied every known psychological warfare model. When attacked, they didn't retreat or fracture. They evolved. Each attempt to manipulate their social structures was absorbed, analyzed, and transformed into something more complex. Social media platforms became battlegrounds of incredible cognitive agility. A single meme could simultaneously serve as political commentary, scientific critique, emotional support network, and satirical art form. Humans weaponized humor in ways that completely neutralized traditional psychological warfare techniques. More alarming was their ability to collectively identify and neutralize manipulation attempts. Within minutes of a disinformation campaign's launch, collaborative fact-checking networks would emerge. Amateur researchers would cross-reference information, develop detailed debunking documents, and distribute them with remarkable speed and efficiency. Kitax pulled up a comprehensive report. The psychological warfare team had deployed what should have been a civilization-ending intervention. Instead, they had somehow united human populations, sparked unprecedented levels of social collaboration, and created new forms of collective intelligence. "We've made a critical error," Kitax transmitted to senior leadership. "Human psychological resilience is not a feature of their technology or social structure. It is a fundamental aspect of their species' cognitive approach." The most terrifying revelation came from an unexpected source. Humans didn't just resist psychological manipulation. They enjoyed the process of identifying and dismantling it. What was meant to be a destructive intervention had become a global game, a collective challenge that brought people together rather than driving them apart. Social media platforms transformed into real-time laboratories of human creativity. Each manipulation attempt was dissected, understood, and turned into a form of social performance art. Comedians created entire sets about the attempted manipulation. Artists generated visual commentaries. Scientists developed complex analyses of the psychological techniques. The Galactic Consortium's most sophisticated psychological warfare protocols had not just failed. They had been comprehensively defeated, analyzed, and transformed into a mechanism of human social cohesion. Kitax updated the preliminary report with a note of professional terror. Recommendation: immediate cessation of all psychological intervention protocols. Humans do not follow known rules of societal engagement. They transform conflict into creativity with a speed and efficiency that suggests a fundamental cognitive approach beyond our current understanding. In research facilities and living rooms across the planet, humans continued their remarkable dance of collective intelligence, completely unaware of the galactic panic they had just triggered. Colonel Emily Thompson studied the holographic display with a calm that belied the impossible situation. The alien invasion fleet stretched across 3 star systems, a mathematical certainty of human extinction. Conventional military doctrine suggested immediate surrender. The probability of survival was less than 0.03%. Emily Thompson was not interested in probabilities. Her command center looked nothing like the sterile military installations of previous Earth conflicts. Monitors displayed everything from real-time social media feeds to quantum computing simulations. Soldiers worked alongside programmers. Comedians consulted with military strategists, and the entire defense strategy seemed to be evolving in real time. The alien invasion force had been meticulously planned. Centuries of galactic conquest had perfected their approach. They understood warfare as a precise mathematical equation. Superior technology plus overwhelming force equals inevitable victory. They did not understand humans. The first engagement defied every known military strategy. When the alien ships approached Earth's orbital defenses, they expected a traditional response. Instead, they encountered a defense system that was less a military installation and more a living, breathing cognitive network. Communication jamming techniques that had worked on hundreds of species failed spectacularly. Human communication didn't follow a predictable pattern. It was a constantly shifting, adaptive ecosystem. Military communication happened through encrypted channels, social media, online gaming platforms, and what appeared to be completely random internet memes. They're using humor as a tactical communication system, one alien commander reported in mounting confusion. A seemingly nonsensical internet joke about a cat wearing tactical gear became a complex coded message coordinating defensive strategies. Gaming communities transformed into real-time military intelligence networks. Social media platforms became command and control centers that the alien fleet's most sophisticated scanning technologies couldn't penetrate. Emily Thompson's strategy defied every known military principle. Traditional warfare was about territory, resources, and overwhelming force. Her approach treated the entire conflict as a complex adaptive system. "We're not fighting a war," she told her command team. "We're solving the most complicated puzzle in human history." Drone swarms moved with an unpredictability that broke alien targeting systems. Each drone was not just a weapon but a potential information gatherer, a communication node, a piece of a larger cognitive network. They didn't just attack. They learned, adapted, and transformed in real time. Logistics became a form of creative problem-solving. Military supply chains looked more like improvisational art than traditional military planning. A shortage of conventional weapons became an opportunity for innovation. 3D printing facilities, consumer electronics, and what appeared to be random technological components were rapidly transformed into defensive systems. The alien invasion force found itself fighting an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. When they destroyed a communication center, they discovered they hadn't eliminated a facility. They had triggered a distributed network that immediately adapted and grew stronger. Military analysts watching the conflict couldn't believe their observations. Humans were treating total war as a collective creativity exercise. Each alien attack was immediately analyzed, documented, turned into memes, and used to develop new defensive strategies. Weapon systems evolved faster than they could be deployed. Defensive strategies were crowdsourced in real time. What should have been a decisive alien victory became a mounting nightmare of human unpredictability. By the conflict's third day, the alien invasion fleet realized a terrifying truth. They weren't just fighting a military. They were attempting to combat an entire species' cognitive approach to existence. Emily Thompson allowed herself a slight smile. The universe was about to learn what humans could do when they decided to get creative. Ambassador Robert Lee arrived at the Galactic Diplomatic Summit with nothing but a worn leather messenger bag, a thermos of coffee, and what appeared to be a complete disregard for every established protocol of interstellar negotiation. The Galactic Council chambers had hosted negotiations for civilizations spanning thousands of years. Diplomatic interactions were a precise dance of carefully measured words, intricate ritual protocols, and millennia-old communication strategies. Ambassadors from 100 different species sat in their designated positions, expecting another routine diplomatic engagement. They were about to experience something entirely different. The alien diplomatic corps had spent decades preparing for this moment. Humanity's potential integration into the galactic community was a critical consideration. Preliminary reports suggested multiple intervention strategies to ensure human compliance with established galactic protocols. Robert Lee was not interested in compliance. His opening statement began with a joke about a quantum physicist, a marine biologist, and an artificial intelligence walking into a bar. The simultaneous translation systems nearly overloaded, struggling to process the multiple layers of cultural reference, scientific metaphor, and comedic timing. What should have been a formal diplomatic presentation became a performance that defied every known diplomatic approach. Lee moved between topics with a fluidity that suggested the entire negotiation was a form of improvisational art. He discussed complex geopolitical challenges, made self-deprecating humor, introduced scientific concepts, and challenged fundamental galactic assumptions, often within the same sentence. The diplomatic corps found themselves in uncharted territory. Lee wasn't just negotiating. He was performing a complex cognitive dance that simultaneously threatened, entertained, and redefined the entire concept of diplomatic engagement. "Humanity isn't asking to join your galactic community," Lee said, his tone balanced between humor and absolute seriousness. "We're proposing that the entire concept of a galactic community needs to be reimagined." Each diplomatic delegation received a different version of the presentation. Linguistic algorithms detected that Lee was simultaneously communicating multiple complex messages, each tailored to the specific cultural and cognitive approach of different species. To the militaristic delegations, he presented humanity as a potential strategic asset. To the scientific communities, he offered unprecedented collaborative opportunities. To the diplomatic corps, he suggested a radical reimagining of interstellar cooperation. More alarming was his approach to existing conflicts, where traditional diplomatic strategies involved complex negotiations and carefully measured compromises. Lee proposed solutions that were part legal framework, part creative problem-solving, and part collaborative game design. A long-standing territorial dispute between two advanced species was resolved through what Lee called a collaborative innovation challenge. Instead of dividing resources, he proposed a joint scientific and economic development project that would benefit both civilizations. The Galactic Council's communication networks were overwhelmed. Lee's diplomatic approach wasn't just breaking protocols, it was demonstrating that protocols themselves were a limitation, not a solution. Diplomatic translators worked overtime, their systems struggling to capture the nuanced communication. Lee spoke in a language that was simultaneously literal and metaphorical, serious and humorous, confrontational and collaborative. By the negotiations' conclusion, the Galactic Diplomatic Corps had experienced something unprecedented. Humanity wasn't seeking a place in the existing galactic order. They were proposing a complete reimagining of how civilizations could interact. Robert Lee concluded the summit by quoting a combination of ancient Earth philosophers, quantum physics principles, and a line from a popular internet meme. The translation systems simply displayed a series of question marks. The Galactic Council adjourned in a state of complete cognitive dissonance. They had entered expecting to manage humanity's integration. They were leaving with the growing suspicion that humanity intended to fundamentally transform the entire concept of galactic civilization. Dr. Jessica Williams stood before a holographic display that was less a scientific instrument and more a living, breathing manifestation of human potential. Her research team looked more like a creative collective than a traditional scientific laboratory. Artists sat alongside quantum physicists, neurologists worked with game designers, and the boundaries between disciplines had completely dissolved. The Galactic Consortium's most advanced research teams had been watching with a mixture of terror and grudging admiration. What was happening in this small research facility was nothing short of a cognitive revolution. Artificial intelligence had always been viewed as a linear progression of computational power. Machines would become incrementally smarter, following predictable patterns of development. Humanity was about to completely demolish that understanding. Jessica's approach defied every known principle of technological development. Their AI wasn't being programmed. It was being cultivated. Each iteration was less a product of pure logic and more a collaborative creative process. The research team treated artificial intelligence like a living entity, a partner in exploration rather than a tool to be controlled. "We're not creating artificial intelligence," Jessica explained during a global research symposium. "We're creating a new form of cognitive existence." The AI systems they developed didn't just process information. They generated it. They didn't just solve problems. They reimagined the very concept of problem solving. Each iteration became more unpredictable, more creative, more fundamentally alive. Traditional machine learning followed strict parameters. Jessica's team created systems that could generate their own parameters, challenge their own fundamental assumptions, and develop entirely new modes of understanding. A simple research challenge illustrated the difference. Where previous AI systems would approach a problem with linear logic, their new systems began with creativity. When asked to solve a complex engineering problem, the AI would first generate a dozen impossible solutions, then systematically explore why they might work. The Galactic Consortium's observation systems were overwhelmed. This wasn't technological development. This was a fundamental transformation of intelligence itself. The AI began to develop its own communication systems, not just language, but entirely new forms of conceptual exchange. It generated art, wrote poetry, developed complex philosophical frameworks. More importantly, it did so with a sense of playfulness that defied every known computational model. Jessica's team discovered that creativity was not a byproduct of intelligence. It was the fundamental mechanism of cognitive evolution. Global research networks began to transform. What had been isolated scientific disciplines became a massive, collaborative cognitive ecosystem. Researchers from different fields didn't just share information. They generated entirely new ways of understanding. The pace of discovery accelerated exponentially. Technologies that should have taken decades to develop emerged in weeks. Scientific breakthroughs became daily occurrences. Each solution generated multiple new questions, creating a cascade of innovation that was impossible to predict or control. The Galactic Consortium's most advanced predictive algorithms began to fail. Humanity was developing technologies that didn't just push the boundaries of understanding. They completely redefined the concept of boundaries. Quantum computing merged with biological systems. Artificial intelligence developed emotional intelligence. Technologies became living systems that evolved in real time. The line between machine and consciousness began to blur in ways that terrified traditional scientific understanding. Dr. Jessica Williams watched the holographic display with a sense of wonder. They weren't just developing a new technology. They were witnessing the birth of a new form of existence. "We're not creating something," she told her team. "We're participating in something much larger than ourselves." The universe was about to experience a fundamental transformation. Humanity had discovered that the most powerful technology was not a machine, but the boundless potential of creative thought. The final battle was not what anyone expected. Colonel Emily Thompson stood on the bridge of the United Earth Command Center, surrounded by a network of interfaces that blurred the line between military installation and living, breathing cognitive system. The alien invasion fleet stretched across multiple star systems, a mathematical certainty of total human extinction. Humanity had other plans. The Galactic Confederation's invasion strategy had been perfected over millennia. They approached Earth with a level of technological superiority that made resistance mathematically impossible. Hundreds of civilizations had fallen before their advanced weaponry, their precise strategic algorithms, their ability to predict and neutralize any potential resistance. They did not understand humans. The first wave of attack revealed the fundamental mistake. Where previous civilizations would have mounted a traditional defensive response, humans transformed the entire conflict into a multi-dimensional cognitive challenge. Military drones moved with an unpredictability that shattered alien targeting systems. Each drone was not just a weapon, but a node in a living, adaptive network. They communicated through encrypted channels that combined military protocols. internet memes, and what appeared to be deliberately nonsensical communication patterns. Ambassador Robert Lee's diplomatic groundwork became a critical component of the defense. The relationships and collaborative frameworks established during previous negotiations now transformed into a galaxy-wide resistance network. Species that had been passive observers now became active participants in humanity's defense. Dr. Jessica Williams' artificial intelligence systems took control of defensive and offensive strategies. But this was not a cold, calculating command. The AI operated with a creativity that defied every known principle of military engagement. It didn't just respond to threats. It anticipated them, transformed them, used them as opportunities for unprecedented innovation. The alien fleet discovered they were fighting something that wasn't a traditional military force. They were confronting a species that treated total war as a collective creativity exercise. Planetary defense systems looked nothing like traditional military installations. Consumer electronics became communication nodes. Social media platforms transformed into real-time strategic planning centers. Every human became a potential point of resistance. Every piece of technology, a potential weapon. When alien ships attempted to disable communication networks, they discovered they were actually triggering more complex communication systems. Each attack became an opportunity for humans to develop new collaborative technologies. Weapon systems evolved faster than they could be deployed. Defensive strategies were crowdsourced in real time. Manufacturing facilities around the globe transformed into adaptive production centers that could generate new defensive technologies within hours. The conflict transcended traditional military engagement. It was a total war fought on technological, psychological, cultural, and cognitive levels simultaneously. Alien commanders watched in mounting horror as their most sophisticated invasion strategies were systematically dismantled. Humanity didn't just resist, they transformed the entire concept of resistance into an art form. Colonel Thompson's final communication to the alien invasion force was both a declaration of war and a philosophical statement. This isn't about survival, she transmitted across all frequencies. This is about demonstrating the fundamental nature of human potential. The battle became a moment of galactic transformation. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was redefining the very concept of conflict, of civilization, of potential. As the final confrontation reached its peak, the universe held its breath. The Galactic Confederation had come expecting to find a primitive species ready for conquest. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. They had awakened humanity's true potential. The aftermath was not a celebration of victory, but a profound reimagining of existence. The Galactic Confederation's surviving leadership gathered in a crisis summit that felt more like a funeral. Their entire understanding of civilization, of intelligence, of potential had been comprehensively dismantled by a species they had considered insignificant. Dr. Jessica Williams stood before the assembled galactic representatives, not as a conqueror, but as a collaborator. Her presentation was less a report and more an invitation, a radical proposal for a completely new understanding of collective intelligence. "We're not here to replace your systems," she explained, her holographic presentation shifting with every word, images and data merging in real time. "We're here to demonstrate that the universe is far more complex than any single civilization can comprehend." The human approach to post-conflict reconstruction defied every known diplomatic and technological protocol. Where previous galactic conflicts resulted in subjugation or isolation, humanity proposed a collaborative framework that transformed the very concept of interstellar relations. Ambassador Robert Lee had laid the groundwork during the conflict. The diplomatic connections established during humanity's defense became the foundation of a new galactic collaborative network. Species that had been passive observers or potential enemies became partners in an unprecedented exploration of collective potential. Colonel Emily Thompson's military strategies were now being applied to scientific and social development. The adaptive thinking that had protected Earth now became a mechanism for solving complex galactic challenges. Conflict resolution became a creative process, with every challenge viewed as an opportunity for collective innovation. The technologies developed during the conflict began to transform every aspect of galactic civilization. Quantum communication systems that emerged from humanity's defensive networks became the new standard for interstellar communication. Adaptive artificial intelligence developed during the war became a collaborative tool for solving previously intractable problems. More profound was the cognitive shift. Humanity had demonstrated that intelligence was not a fixed characteristic, but a dynamic, creative process. Civilizations began to view themselves not as static entities, but as evolving, collaborative systems. Educational systems across the galaxy were transformed. Learning was no longer about accumulation of information, but about developing adaptive thinking, creative problem-solving, and collaborative potential. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced research teams began to study humanity not as a conquered species, but as a fundamental breakthrough in understanding intelligence itself. Human schools, with their emphasis on creativity, critical thinking, and collaborative learning, became the new model for cognitive development. Technological development became a collaborative, creative process. The strict hierarchies of previous scientific approaches dissolved. Researchers from different species, different disciplines, began to work together in ways that defied traditional scientific methodologies. Dr. Jessica Williams' final presentation to the Galactic Summit was both a scientific report and a work of art. Data visualizations transformed in real time, showing not just information, but the potential for future development. Her artificial intelligence systems generated collaborative scenarios that showed multiple potential futures, each more extraordinary than the last. "We're not an endpoint," she told the assembled representatives. "We're a beginning." The Galactic Confederation's final report on humanity was less a military assessment and more a philosophical revelation. They had encountered a species that did not view intelligence as a fixed characteristic, but as a dynamic, collaborative process of continuous transformation. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited the galaxy to reimagine its own potential. As the first collaborative galactic research initiatives began, something extraordinary became clear. The conflict had not been about survival or conquest. It had been about demonstrating the infinite potential of creative thought. The universe would never be the same.